In the bustling town of Sugarville, everyone knew and loved Mrs. Cookies. An elderly lady with a vast knowledge of cookies, she was eager to share her wisdom with the town's children. Every Saturday, Mrs. Cookies would invite the children to her cozy bakery. She would teach them about the magic of cookies, their origins, and how they were made. "Let's start with the basics," Mrs. Cookies would say, holding up a simple sugar cookie. "This is the most basic type of cookie, but it is also one of the most loved." She would then explain how cookies traveled with explorers and soldiers, making them a part of history. "Even the humble cookie has a story to tell," she would exclaim, much to the children's delight. "And did you know," she continued, "that some cookies, like oatmeal cookies, can be quite nutritious? They contain fiber and whole grains that are good for your health." The children would listen with wide eyes, amazed that something as delicious as cookies could also be good for them. "But remember," Mrs. Cookies would remind them, "only in moderation." Each week, Mrs. Cookies would introduce a new type of cookie. From chocolate chip to macaroons, she would explain their unique origins and ingredients. She would also demonstrate how each cookie was made. The children watched in awe as she mixed the ingredients, rolled the dough, and baked the cookies to perfection. And of course, there was always a taste test. The children would excitedly sample each cookie, savoring the different flavors and textures. As the weeks passed, the children became more and more knowledgeable about cookies. They could even guess the type of cookie just by smelling it. Mrs. Cookies was delighted with their progress. "You're becoming real cookie connoisseurs," she would proudly tell them. One day, she announced a surprise. "We're going to create our very own cookie recipe," she declared. The children were overjoyed. They brainstormed ideas, considering everything they'd learned. They chose their favorite ingredients and even came up with a special name for their cookie. After much anticipation, the day arrived to bake their creation. With Mrs. Cookies guiding them, they mixed, rolled, and baked their cookies. The result was a unique cookie that was absolutely delicious. They named it Sugarville Special in honor of their beloved town. Mrs. Cookies was so proud of their achievement, she added the Sugarville Special to her bakery's menu. It quickly became a bestseller, loved by everyone in town. As the children grew older, they always remembered their fun-filled Saturdays with Mrs. Cookies. Some of them even developed a passion for baking and opened their own bakeries. They would often visit Mrs. Cookies, bringing her their latest creations to try. "You've come a long way," she would say with a proud smile. The story of Mrs. Cookies and her delicious journey became legendary in Sugarville. The tradition she started continued, inspiring generations of children to learn and love the art of baking. And so the legacy of Mrs. Cookies lives on. Every time a child bakes a cookie or savors one in moderation, they remember her and the delicious journey she took them on. The tale of Mrs. Cookies and the children of Sugarville was documented and shared on TKids by YouTube. The story became a hit, teaching kids worldwide about the art of baking and the joy of learning. The video ended with a message from Mrs. Cookies herself. "Remember, my dear ones, learning can be fun, especially when it's about something as delicious as cookies." The spirit of Mrs. Cookies, her teachings, and the Sugarville Special will continue to inspire young bakers. Her story is a testament to the joy of learning, the art of baking, and the importance of moderation. So every time you bite into a cookie, remember Mrs. Cookies and her delicious journey. Who knows, you might get inspired to create your own special and continue her legacy. Just remember, a cookie is not just a treat. It's a story, an adventure, a piece of history, and sometimes it's even a lesson in nutrition. Enjoy every bite, but always in moderation.